Howdy, Maple Mafia, and welcome to the Maple Mafia channel, y'all. Today, we're going to be talking about the trees that are going off today, March 2nd of 2025 on eBay. We got a good listing of awesome items that are going off today from 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time till 9:10 Eastern Standard Time this evening. Y'all, a lot of awesome, cool trees. So get your bids in, early. I'm going to be talking about some of those cool plants. If you don't know anything about us, we're MrMaple. We're a family mail order business. We ship directly to your door. We do over 1,000 varieties of Japanese maples, and we've been doing some interesting, unique, rare selections of maples and even some conifers on our eBay, which is Maple Mafia there on eBay. And so we've got a lot of really cool plants. People have really been liking these things. Guys, going off today, starting at 6 p.m., we've got Acer palmatum Earthfire. Now, Earthfire is one of those really cool, it's like a Matza Murray style leaf. So the leaf is a little more hand-like. It's got a little bit spreading habit, and it's got colors, if you're familiar with Japanese maples, similar to that of Amagi Shiguri. It's got some really nice lavender color. It's pretty rare. It's highly desired. Slow growing, 3 feet in height, 5 foot in width in 10 years. Y'all, really awesome new selection. I think it's going to be hitting the market. People are going to be really jumping after this. But this is one of your chances to get some of these trees early. Now, on MrMaple.com, we often list trees and sell plenty of different varieties. Sometimes these are trees that we're listing on eBay that have never been listed before on MrMaple. Sometimes it's a second chance. And then sometimes it's just one of those plants that's really rare that, you know, we find an extra one around the greenhouses and we didn't realize it was there. Next, coming up is Mayday. And that's one of those trees that everybody's after. It is a Makawa type that leaves out kind of apricot in the early spring. And then after that, it gets to like this really nice sort of blonde yellow color. It's got that tightly layering habit. It's real slow growing, 3 to 4 feet in height, 3 to 4 foot in width in 10 years. It's an awesome Makawa selection that everybody wants, but we just can't produce enough of them. And that's one of the reasons it's become so popular here on eBay when we list it, because it is a beautiful Makawa selection that there's just not enough in production around the United States. Mayday is an awesome selection by Talon Buchholz. It came as a chance seedling off of the big Makawa Yatabusa at Buchholz Nursery. The original name on it was Joy of May. Matt and I saw it years ago in the 3-gallon at Buchholz Nursery, one of our very first visits. And it's kind of crazy. Now we own the original tree, which is in a big box at Buchholz Nursery. I mean, it's crazy, but we're trying to get this tree in production as best we can and increase numbers. But it, you know, sometimes it takes a while. And then when we do list them on MrMaple, they sometimes sell out, you know, maybe a set of 100 in a matter of seconds. And so here's your chance to jump in and get Mayday today. Guys, next up after that, we've got Acer palmatum Celebration. Celebration is a selection by Talon Buchholz and Guy Melot of Melot Bonsai in France, who's got a huge maple collection. He says that this and Strawberry Spring may be Talon Buchholz's best introductions ever. And we're listening to 7-gallon that's going off this evening. It's got some pink-red color with good, strong reticulation. And the spring color of Celebration is unlike any of the other Japanese maples on that more pink-red color. It's very vibrant. It's kind of the color of some of those azaleas that bloom. Like, you know, like some of those just gorgeous. They talk about all these amazing azaleas down in Alabama. You see these just tons of like pink-red color. It's that same pink-red color, but on a Japanese maple's leaves. It's reticulated. That means you see the veins of the leaf that are more prominent than the other parts of the leaf. It is outstanding. Midsummer, you get kind of like a darker green color, but you get that same pink-red color coming again there in the summer. Awesome selection by Talon Buchholz. To me, is one of my favorites. Guys, coming up next, we've got Quercus First Schwarzenberg. And this is an English oak. First Schwarzenberg is a variegated English oak. It's extremely rare. It's harder to produce. And it's got a white and pink variegation on an oak leaf. So it's got a little bit of rounded leaf because an English oak is in that white oak family. Again, this is a tree that I found around. We'd sold out of most of the sets that we had here at MrMaple, and I found a 1-gallon around. So I said, I'm going to throw this here on eBay, give some people another chance, a second chance at getting this Quercus Robur First Schwarzenberg. Love that selection. Next up, going off this evening, we got Hot Chicken. Now, Hot Chicken is a selection by us here at the Area 51 collection as part of our Heat Seeker series at MrMaple. It was a chance seedling that we found as seed we collected at World Maple Park in Japan when we visited Masayoshi Yano on our very first trip to Japan. And he was so gracious to allow us to collect seed off of the same tree that he'd collected seed from that became what we introduced as Hot Tamale and Hot Sauce. And we jointly introduced that with Masayoshi Yano with his permission. Hot Chicken, though, it's a sessilifolium type. So it's got this leaf that looks almost like angel feathers. Amazing Acer oliveranum hybrid. Is very heat tolerant. It's got some nice bronzing in the early spring. It's fairly vigorous. And we've got a 1 gallon going off today. Y'all, next up, we've got Picea farii. Now, this is one of the rarest spruces. It's a extremely rare spruce. All the conifer people are heavily after. And I think some of you maple people might get a chance to pick up a super rare conifer that all the conifer people are after, and they don't realize it's on the Maple Mafia channel on eBay, because it's one of those trees that everybody in the Conifer Society wants. They've been begging us at Buchholz Nursery to be able to release more Picea farii, and we dropped one a couple weeks ago, and this is the last one we're dropping on eBay. So take advantage of this tree. It's one of the rarer conifers in the world. It's one of those trees that everybody in the Conifer Society is after. So if you know somebody who loves conifers, let them know we're getting listed. And on top of that, it'd make a great gift for someone there as well. Next up, we've got Acer palmatum Macaulay Tabusa in 3 gallon. And this is a really nice beefy 3 gallon. And you have to go check out some of the photos of it. It's got some killer size. Normally I wouldn't be listing a Macawa on eBay, but this has got some amazing size for a 3 gallon, so I thought I'd list it here for you. Now, you may notice I've got my sunglasses on, and that's because my eye is a little sensitive. This eye here, I scratched it the other day when loading a truck full of plants. So I'd rather you not have to look at one eye that's kind of half closed up today. Y'all, next up, we've got a 1 gallon of Acer palmatum Bini Hime. This is one of the last ones that we had here at MrMaple. And, that's one that we don't offer very frequently. It's a compact dwarf witch's broom. It needs good drainage whenever you're planting it out in the landscape. It does great in containers, but good drainage is essential because it's super slow growing. In the early spring, it's got some amazing coral pink colors and some pink red colors on the top new growth. That is some of the brightest of any of the dwarfs. It's heavily desired by collectors. It's one that sells out quickly when we do list it on MrMaple, but this one I believe may be the last one on the property at MrMaple. Next up, we've got Acer platanoides plum density. Now, this is a newer selection of a Norway maple that has that red Norway maple leaf, that larger leaf, but a more narrow conical habit. New selection, not much in the nursery trade yet, and this is an XL 1 gallon that's going off this evening. So take advantage of some of these cool rare selections that may not be listing on MrMaple for quite a while. It could be a year, maybe 2, until we're able to offer something like plum density again. Next up, we've got Hot Sauce, and this is an Acer oliveranum selection I mentioned earlier. It's one that was found by Masayoshi Yano and given a code name. And when we got it from Masayoshi Yano, he told us, if you're going to introduce us to the trade, please put a better name on it than this code name. And we asked him if Hot Sauce would work, and he said, I like it. And so we were really honored to be able to introduce one of his introductions. And what this is an Acer oliveranum that has a more blood good style leaf. So it's a more heat tolerant red upright Japanese maple. It's got some of the Acer palmatum genetics that gives it the red color and your typical Japanese maple leaf, but it's got some of those oliveranum genetics that can allow it to handle more heat than many of the other trees. Again, heavily desired by collectors who've seen a lot of our videos on the MrMaple Show YouTube channel. If you're not a fan and if you haven't followed our videos on the MrMaple Show, make sure you're subscribed over there as well. We do daily YouTube videos over there, a lot about gardening. We'll do walkthroughs of gardens. We'll do how-to on how to grow certain types of Japanese maples. And we do cultivar spotlights as well. So you'll definitely want to check that out. But next up, y'all, we've got Acer Shirasanum Blue Moon in a 1 gallon. This is a selection by Carl Munn of Munn's Nursery in Oregon. He introduced Moonrise. This is another seedling he'd been evaluating. And while I would compare Moonrise to being an improved version of Autumn Moon that's more heat tolerant, this one is a more colorful version of Arium to me. In the early spring, this one gets some gorgeous oranges. And then after those oranges, it goes to a really nice yellow to yellow-green color on the leaves. It's got that typical full moon maple leaf, and it's slow growing. Typically, I'd recommend, just like Arium, some protection from the hot afternoon sun for an Acer Shirasanum Blue Moon. It's one that I love. I think the colors are outrageous on this tree, and I think this is an Acer Shirasanum. More people, the more they grow it, the more they're going to realize how much they love the color changes that this tree does out there in the garden. Next up, we've got one of our very own introductions of this full moon maple that's going off this evening, and that's Acer Shirasanum Magic Moon. Now, this is one of the most desired Acer Shirasanums, and I think part of that is because when we first released it, we sold too many stock plants, and people started bragging about the trees that they'd purchased and how it has this unique yellow malting variegation and curled leaf. And it's very interesting because there's not much else out in the nursery trade like it for full moon maple. And then it took years and years for us to be able to build enough stock back up to release it again. So we actually had a re-release of a tree that had essentially been discontinued for a few years because we'd sold too many of them. And so the popularity grew quite a bit because everybody who couldn't get a hold of this tree wanted it. But we've been working hard to be able to offer this more and more, and we've got large sets of these coming on. But guys, I've got an XL 1 gallon Magic Moon today going off this evening. And this tree, again, this may be some of the last of the Magic Moon that are getting listed. Could be this year. It could be later, you know, till next year until we're able to offer some of these more Magic Moons. Not 100% sure what we have at the Buckholz farm, so I have to double check on that. But next up after that, we've got a Kaji Nishiki. Now, this is a spring interest Japanese maple that has some amazing pink like color in the early spring. It's one of those trees that the leaves themselves are kind of like flowers when they leaf out in the early spring. And it is just outrageous in that pink color. It's got an upright habit. We're talking something like 6-8 foot, maybe 8 to 10 foot in 10 years. And then after that pink color, it goes to a green. And then you get some colorful new growth there in the summer, but the fall color is going to be really nice and intense. The unique thing about these spring interest Japanese maples is they really give the change of the seasons, and they get you to really anticipate the next season because of how dynamically different they are in each and every season. I think it'd be a great idea for a bonsai. Really awesome tree there. You know, we recently did a top 5 on MrMaple show on the top 5 DeSoto-like Japanese maples that you should turn into bonsai. I think this could be one of those items that could fall in those categories as well because it's really dynamic in its spring color. Awesome tree with a Kaji Nishiki. Now, also going off tonight, we've got Acer Bajurianum Michael Steinhardt. This is a selection that was found by Don Shadow in Tennessee. And Don Shadow is a nursery legend. He's found and introduced so many amazing plants. His most popular introduction is Liquid Ambar Slender Silhouette. It's a narrow growing sweet gummy found on the side of the road tracks. This is an Acer Bajurianum, so it's a trident maple. The leaf has 3 lobes. It's really beautiful. And this thing is yellow. It's got bright golden yellow leaves, and it can handle a lot of heat. Being all the way towards the mid to western Tennessee, it can actually handle full sun there, which was really striking for many yellow-leafed trees in general, yellow-leaf maples. Now, Michael Steinhardt has some great fall colors, some oranges and reds in the fall. It's faster growing, being a trident maple as well. I love the Acer Bajurianums. There's not as many introductions of Acer Bajurianums circling the nursery trade, and this is one that is uniquely different with a really good color of yellow out there and some dynamic fall color. Awesome selection. And again, maybe towards the end of the Acer Bajurianum Michael Steinhardt's we're listing this year. Now, next up, we've got Acer Scoochi, and it's a liner. So this is a little bit smaller than some of the 1 gallons that we've been listing. And this is a liner of one of the rarest maples in the world. The Mexican sugar maple, the cloud forest maple, Acer Scoochi, has like 3 to 5 disjunct populations around Mexico and Guatemala. There's actually a thesis you can go read by Yalma Vargas Rodriguez, and she writes all about Acer Scoochi. They've since found that some of those disjunct populations, and that means that they're separated by big geographic, challenges where they can't be near each other, that some of those may actually be another subspecies because there's some slight variation. But Acer Scoochi, one of the rarest maples in the world, and it's a sugar maple leaf. It's got some good yellow fall color. It's fairly heat tolerant, being from Mexico. Its populations are kind of being destroyed in Mexico because of deforestation. There's some efforts trying to save Acer Scoochi, but some of the Acer Scoochi has found its way to the United States years ago, and here we have seedlings of Acer Scoochi from those trees that have been brought to the United States. And you're able to have one of the rarest trees, rarest maples in the world in your garden with this Acer Scoochi. So take advantage of this Acer Scoochi liner. Really cool, awesome plant. We've got a full species breakdown on the Mr. Maple show on Acer Scoochi. So you definitely should go check that out, where we go and interview at Stephen F. Austin University about Acer Scoochi. You should definitely check that out. Next up, y'all, we've got Acer palmatum Gable's Glory in an XL 1 gallon. And this is a pink-red Japanese maple that is one of the most colorful trees that I've seen. And the reason I say it's one of the most colorful trees is it dynamically is different each and every season. In the early spring, you get some bright pink-red colors. Somehow, I don't know how this actually happens, those leaves turn to more of a yellow color during the summer, and then the new growth is pink-red over top of that. So you get this dynamically different leaf from the bottom of the tree on the older, more mature leaves to the new growth. It's crazy. Some people have called this the chameleon Japanese maple because of that. And I think that's a great common name for Gable's Glory. It was a selection by Larry Gable, as Del Laux told us when we got who we got this from. And it has just crazy colors. It's an upright tree, typically reaching that 6 to 8 foot range in 10 years, but it's dynamic in its color. And found a large XL 1 gallon when we were going around the greenhouses. That's the one that's going off this evening, so you have to check out the photos on the size. Y'all, amazing colors on that. Now, next up, we're starting to get into some Makawa types. And I like to end off the evening on some really cool Makawa types often on eBay. You'll see some of the coolest stuff on the Makawa types going off later in the evening just to keep your interest late as these things are going on. Now, as these items are going off, new trees are getting listed for next week because we're keeping this eBay thing rolling. And that means that you'll start to see, if you go look at sellers' other items, you'll see many of the other new trees that are getting listed for next week. So you can go and sort of get a preview of some of the items that you might be interested in. Now, next up, we've got Mystic Makawa. This is one of the first orange Makawa Yetabusa selections. We actually had a competitor to this early on that we were calling Oompa Loompa, but honestly, Mystic Makawa, very similar, and it got out there before Oompa Loompa did, so we said there was no reason to introduce Oompa Loompa. But Mystic Makawa had some amazing orange color, and it's a slow growth rate. We're talking 3 to 4 feet in height by 3 to 4 foot in width in 10 years. It's a little bit slower growing than Makawa Yetabusa itself, but you get that orange color out of it as well. It's heavily desired by collectors, and again, it's one of those trees we can't produce enough of. You know, Makawa Yetabusa is a tree that is harder to propagate than some of the other, more dwarf types or even upright types because of those tightly layering internodes. And that's the reason we like it, is because those tightly layering internodes give it this fluffy, lively feel in the landscape and garden. And this gives that with some extra color in that early spring. It will fade to a green later on in the summer, but Mr. Makawa, It's an amazing selection. And I fall in love with it more and more every time I see it. Y'all, next up, we've got Makawa KN. Now, Makawa, you know what that means. KN means golden. And that's because this gives you some bronze color in the early spring on a Makawa Tsubusa selection that's going to be tightly layering in its habit. It's an introduction by the same guy who brought us Mystic Makawa. And it's going to be in that similar size range, maybe a little bit taller in that 4 to 5 foot in range, by 4 to 5 foot in width in 10 years. It's a Makawa selection that there's not enough of. And that's the thing with this. Makawa types have all the hype right now. It's because we love them. And we do a lot of videos talking about how awesome these different selections are. Makawa KN, it's pretty amazing. And again, we can't get enough wood to produce thousands of these. And there's a lot of people who want these. When we list many of these Makawa types, when we do list them on MrMaple, they sell out in seconds. And so we're working hard to try to provide more and more of those. But this is your chance to be able to get one where it doesn't rely on you being fast. It just depends on how much you want to try to go after one of these. Now, next up, we've got Acer Palmatum Red Panda. Now, this is our selection of the best deep red Makawa selection on the market. We've evaluated thousands and thousands of Makawa seedlings. And to me, this was the best. It's got some good deep red color, slow growth rate, and it holds its red color longer in the season than any of the other red Makawas in the exact same environmental condition. Now, we've evaluated lots of them against this, lots of varieties, lots of other people's selections, and Red Panda, hands down, the best red Makawa that's on the market. Now, we released Red Panda this past year, and it's one of our patented selections. So the only place to get Red Panda, the true Red Panda, is from MrMaple, and that can be through mrmaple.com or here on our Maple Mafia on eBay. Now, next up, and the very last tree going off today at 9:10 Eastern Standard Time, is possibly the more desired Makawa type that we've got. We've released probably the least amount of this selection than any of the other Makawa types on this list, and that's Acer Palmatum Nemo. This was a selection by Dr. Charles Murray. If you've seen our podcast on ancient Japanese maple selections, I think it might even be called like Japanese Maple 1700s list, we interviewed Dr. Charles Murray of Asheville. He was good friends with, he went and met with J.D. Vertrees. He was good friends with Peter Gregory. And he actually knew Howard Hughes, who was one of the guys out there in the Washington area who distributed a lot of rare Japanese maples. And Maple Expert, this was a seedling that he found of an orange-red Makawa selection that he gave us and said, hey guys, I want y'all to introduce this. And it's a slow-growing, tightly layering Makawa type. We released a few of these at Open House, and we've dropped a few of them here on eBay. This possibly, again, we're getting towards the end of some of these Makawa types on the numbers I'm willing to release here on eBay, because we have to keep some of these back for stock plants. And that's one of the things, we would have never released, say, Nemo, except maybe dropping a few at open houses. It wouldn't go on the limited. It's too rare of a plant for us for that. And it's something that we didn't have enough on to be able to list as a listing on mrmaple.com. But because we're doing this on eBay, now a Nemo is getting out, and we're setting, okay, we need this many stock plants to be able to produce from. And you've got a chance to get Nemo before it's really officially released on mrmaple.com. So take advantage of these cool trees. Y'all, there's a bunch of cool plants on here. We appreciate y'all tuning in today. Take care, God bless, and have a great day.